Welcome, welcome, welcome to Fast Politics. Jeet here.
Always
Hi,
good to be on
Jeet.
the program.
I don't know. There was so much news this morning. I was like in the car reading between, I'm not driving because nobody ever lets me drive because everybody's mean to me. But I don't even know where to start, right? Do we start with that Elon Musk, New York Times? He's got bladder problems from ketamine. I mean, is that where we start?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had a kind of like I've been actually thinking about writing about this for a while now, and I guess this article gives me a good occasion to because the Trump administration is on drugs, and
Right.
not in a good way. There's kind of a lot of substance abuse, and it's kind of curious because I mean, the rap on Trump was always like, well, his older brother was an alcoholic. He
Right.
doesn't like
Right.
the people who drink and whatnot, and I don't know. He's sort of in his YOLO phase because like it seems like you have to have like Hexeth, serious alcoholic. Who's the other one? Judge
A
the
judge box of wine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Judge Pirro.
Yes, yeah,
In
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They've had their issues, and you normally like the human response, like very sympathetic. They should be doing it, but like should you be in charge of the Pentagon while you're working out these issues? I don't necessarily know. But it actually and I think there's a couple of things going on here, which is I think that people mistakenly think of drugs as like this hippie left wing thing, right? But in Silicon Valley, like sort of performance enhancement drugs have become a big thing, like ketamine.
Right.
And it's all a part of, this kind of like culture of neoliberal competition, and you have to be one step ahead, and you have to and then also their faith in technology. They think that these things will make you a brainiac, a super brain,
Right.
that's
Right.
faster than everyone else. And it actually has a long kind of history on the right, going back to the 1950s. Brian Doherty has a great book on the radicals for capitalism, on the libertarian movement, and he basically shows in the 50s there are already these businessmen who are like, they wanted to cut taxes, real hardcore Republicans, but we're also doing a lot of experimentation with LSD and other things. It seems to me like it's part of this culture of individualism. And also they think that they're supermen.
Oh, yeah. And I want to talk about this because it's so interesting. Like Trump 1.0, you and I both have been writing about this
Yeah.
forever, right? I feel like we've fucking aged so much, Trump 1.0, then Biden.
I have to say, Molly, like you actually look like 10 years younger than when I first met you. I feel that you're like veritable Dorian Gray, that there's a painting in that closet behind you that's rapidly aging. But
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
you're keeping up your spirit of youth.
Oh, thank you. With Botox and fillers. That's fine. Um,
Yeah.
but Trump 1.0, grown-ups in the room,
Yes.
some, but still a lot of damage, but disdain from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Trump 2.0, Silicon Valley decides we can buy this guy pretty
Mm.
cheap. Let's go.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I think that is a large part of the story. I think it's also that Trump felt burned by both the loss of the election and then some of the establishment blowback, and also the fact that
yeah.
virtually everyone that worked for his first administration wrote a book saying this guy's a psychopath who should never be let near power. So he decided, like
That is true.
the second time around, I'm not gonna go like listen to Mitch McConnell as to who I should put in the Pentagon. I'm just gonna pick
Right.
up, like the
Right.
whoever is like kisses my ass the most, and will and also all these hardcore ideologues who were radicalized along with
Right.
Trump, who so it is a very and we got reached the point where like I mean the other bit of news which ties in with this is like Trump 1.0, the Federalist Society ran the show. They were the ones who were making all
Yeah.
the judicial appointments, and now Trump is finding that some of those judges are not as much in his pockets as they
Yes.
should be.
Yes.
And so he's like just did
Yes.
this like post about Leonard Leo saying,
Yes.
he's a sleazebag who
Yes.
hates America in his own way. And like this is like classic let them fight, because Leonard
Right.
Leo is one of the most evil men in
Yes.
America.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
but
If
not for the
ev
reasons that Trump thinks.
Right. So this is the breaking news is that today, this podcast will air tomorrow on Saturday, but
Yeah.
we'll still be talking about this because it's so stupid. And I also want the record to show that we are laughing to keep from crying. Personally, I am as upset as I've ever been about the state of American
It's terrible, but I mean,
democracy.
you
Right.
eh,
But
like
Leonard Leo, I want to go into this because Leonard Leo really is incredibly responsible for everything we're going through right now. Donald J. Trump on Truth Social, I'm very mad. We could read some of the truth, but basically the net of it is he's very mad at Leonard Leo. We think this is about the tariffs and the case that Leonard Leo's group is bringing with the surviving Koch brother about where they're going to take away tariff authority from Trump because Trump is a mad king and he is really fucking up the American economy.
mm. Yeah,
Is
no,
that
that's right, and I think there's a couple other issues as well, which is
yeah,
that,
please.
Leonard Leo also had helped appoint a lot of Trump judges for the first, term,
Mhm.
and some of these judges are the ones that are voting against Trump, and so Trump
Yeah.
does feel this is a great betrayal because, he appointed those judges with the idea that they'd give him whatever he wants. But Leonard Leo, to backtrack a little bit, I mean, like, obviously, going back to Roe v. Wade and the Warren courts, the courts were a big kind of center for the right wing that they thought they had to take back the courts, and Leonard Leo with the Federalist Society was the guy that came up with the strategy. And he came up with the strategy partially because initially they had problems. Like they would nominate, or Republicans would nominate someone like Sandra Day O'Connor or
Right.
Justice Souter, and they would be conservative on some economic stuff, but they would still uphold Roe v. Wade, right? They would not
Right.
go that extra mile. So the Federalist Society was basically designed to make sure that this does not happen. And what they did was they created a huge, like multi-million dollar industry within the legal system where they would,
Mhm.
I call that the legal grooming project. Which is that they would take these very impressionable young adults who are in law school, and they would show them that if you join the Federalist Society, you could suddenly get be an intern at top law firms and at the
Right.
Supreme Court, and they would pick up people like the people that they picked up were like Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, and others, and Clarence Thomas, and hook them up with this legal system and make sure that you have these people who are like in the mafia. They're made men
Mhm.
and made
Yeah.
women in the case of Coney Barrett, that they are, they'll be loyal to the team more than the Constitution. It got to the point where like Leonard Leo was basically the one picking judges, both under Bush Jr. and under Trump. And this all worked out wonderfully for the Republicans. They got Roe overturned. They got, Citizens United, a lot of things. But now there's a kind of crisis point with Trump because it's two different legal visions. Trump's legal vision is, I'm the king, right? This is
Right.
like Mel Brooks in History of the World. It's good to be the
Mhm.
king. You get
Yeah.
to do what you want, you know? Now, the Federalist Society, they still have a very right-wing position, but
Right.
this is a movement institution. Their thing is we want
Right.
our judges are going to overturn any laws that are social welfare, are going to
Right.
overturn Biden's thing. And so for them,
Right.
it's very important that the courts be an independent power unit, and also
Mhm.
that Trump doesn't do like, anything that goes against the free market, like the tariffs.
Right.
And so this has become a kind of division point so that, we now have these two very bad factions. And, when I read Trump's Truth Social post saying that Leonard Leo is a sleazebag, it was, that great meme, heartbreaking. Worst person in the world makes a good point. Worst person makes a good point.
So I think one of the central tensions of this problem for Donald Trump is that Trump has 2 justices who are in the tank for him,
Yeah,
Thomas and Alito. And anything he wants, Thomas and Alito will sign off on.
yeah,
The other 3 justices, it's more complicated. And then there's Roberts, who again often will sign off with him. And Thomas and Alito are very tight with Leonard Leo.
yes,
In fact, there's all of this reporting about Thomas is basically he bought his house, he bought his
mm.
mother's house, he's
Yeah,
making
yeah. Leo was the guy who set him up with what's his guy, the Crow,
right,
you remember the
Harlan
billionaire?
Crow,
Yeah,
Harlan
Harlan
Crow.
Crow,
Right,
and
who bought the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Leonard,
go
and
on.
he's the one who did the vacations, and yeah, and it
Yeah.
literally also
We
got a
all
job for Ginny Thomas. He got
right.
her a job, which was kind of hidden the financial sources of. So totally corrupt guy. And this
Yeah.
is actually going to be a kind of juncture point, or this is a possible division. And it's kind of complicated for those of us like, who are not I mean, I do sort of take a let them fight
Oh,
attitude.
yeah.
To the extent that the judges are stopping Trump, that's all to the good. But my colleague at the Nation, Ellie Mustel, makes a kind of good point, which is that some of the Trump's judges, just because they're so incompetent, are actually like in the long term better because they'll make like really bad decisions that other judges like higher up will overturn. Because
Yeah.
whereas a Leonard Leo, I mean, these are the
Right.
people who work within the system and know how to maximize what they want out of the system.
Right. It's the difference between a Judge Amy Coney Barrett,
Yeah,
who is very smart but overturns Roe v. Wade,
yeah,
very ideological. Though I do think recusing herself from that decision with the religious schools because it was Notre Dame involved and she was a law professor at Notre Dame, like she is very moral.
yeah.
Like, hard to imagine Alito and Thomas recusing
Oh, they
themselves.
haven't.
Like,
They haven't. I mean, there
right.
are all sorts of cases where, there are
What
people who gave them money are involved in
and
which
they're
they.
just like, "Would" yeah. So, I do think she is very smart and
Mm.
very ideological and really, you listen to her and you think, "Oh, wow, we're in a lot of trouble." Whereas someone like Judge Aileen Cannon,
Right.
who I mean, she also has delivered for Trump, but she's clearly not a high-level thinker the same
No, no,
way that
no, no, no,
Amy
no,
Coney
no.
is.
Yeah, well, I mean, the interesting point that I wanted to, reason I brought it up is because I think it's a counterintuitive point, but I think it's an interesting one that, and Ellie knows the law as well as anyone.
Yeah,
Is
he's
that
very smart.
actually in terms of ultimately overturning this stuff, like to have some of those crazy Trump judges,
Right.
even though they'll go along with them, like their stuff is like so badly written and so badly thought that it's going to force the Supreme Court and others to overturn it. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting kind of. I mean, it's a terrible dilemma to be in.
Yes.
Do you want to die of like liver cancer or do you want to die of throat cancer? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, and I think that's a really good point. I also think that as we are in this bizarre moment in American life, well, all our democratic institutions are really under
Mm.
attack. If we get through this thing, it will be a lot of luck.
Well, a lot of luck, but I mean, the other point I would make about all the court stuff is like what is missing in all this equation is Congress, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Under the American Constitution, like checks and balances. Sure, the courts are supposed to be there, but the courts actually don't have a lot of power. And there's notorious cases where you have presidents like Andrew Jackson who said, "Well, the judges made their decision, let them enforce it," right? But
Right.
the institution that could actually fight back against the president is Congress. And there's like two things. One is that the Republicans are totally on board with Trump, even when they go against
Mhm.
stuff that their donor class wants and they themselves think. And so there's no checks from the Republicans. And the Democrats, like with varying degrees, have taken a let's play dead strategy. So
Yeah.
so Congress is the missing equation.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to give
I
you the example because I just wrote about this. There's a real problem now with threats to judges, right?
yeah. Real problem.
Yeah, you saw the
Yeah.
article where like
The
dozens
pizzas.
of judges got like
Yeah.
these pizza deliveries, and it's all
Yeah.
done in the name of this the son of a judge who had been killed by a litigant. And this is clearly a threat. It's like it's a
Yeah.
mafia thing. We
Yeah,
know
yeah,
where you
yeah.
live, right?
Yeah.
And judges are very worried because they're getting more and more threats, especially with like Trump saying like, impeach the judges, get rid of the judges. And the institution that protects the federal judges below the Supreme Court is the U.S. Marshal, which
Yeah.
is controlled by the Attorney General, like Pam
Yeah.
Bondi and by
Yeah.
Trump. So
Yeah.
the judges like now are pushing they want Congress to like remove the U.S. Marshal from the control of the White House and to make it an independent police force because they
Yes.
don't think that like the president that's threatening them should be
It's
running the
gonna
police
protect
force
them.
that protects them. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like putting a mafia boss in charge of the cops.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
But again, Congress is missing, and I'll give Cory Booker credit because he's actually introduced a bill to do exactly that, to like like beef up security for judges and to make the U.S. Marshal independent. And I think more Democrats need to be on this, and I think it's actually a winning issue. Like actually, I
Yeah.
think that Americans want checks and balances. They understand the danger, and
Yeah.
you really have to be out there as for the midterm saying, you give us the House, you give us the Senate, we'll protect the judges.
Yeah, and I think that's totally right. I also think so many of our problems that we are having right now are because Congress refused to regulate anything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell a very annoying story. I'm at a book party. A member of Congress is complaining about how there is no fact checking on social media. And I have a fork and want to stab my eye out because I'm like, "Oh, I wonder who could have done fact checking
Exactly.
on." I
Yeah.
like they don't, you're gonna fucking
Mhm.
regulate stuff or the world is gonna get ruined. Like, this
Yeah.
is how it is, right? Republicans don't like regulation ideologically.
Mm.
Democrats don't like regulation because they have to work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in particular with Silicon Valley, the Democrats unfortunately helped create this monster because they have ties
Yes,
with Silicon Valley.
yes,
They still take a lot of money, and so things like
yes,
crypto and social media don't get regulated. And it is exactly, I mean, that is the institution that has really failed, and it's a big problem. And it has become, like it's not surprising that so many members of Congress are old and ailing. Yeah,
yeah,
I think if you're an ordinary Democrat, I think that the main institution you should be looking at, thinking about where you can affect change is Congress. And you have to
yeah,
make sure, be like, bothering your
yeah,
congressman, going to those town hall meetings. And if they're caving into Silicon Valley, you have to like primary them. You have to like replace them
yeah,
with Democrats who will fight. I mean, especially like I think there's a lot of these people in blue districts, in places like New York and California, where, you could easily, if you primary them, you're going to get another Democrat who could be a better Democrat and a stronger Democrat. So Congress
yeah.
is the real battlefield here for like if we're gonna fix this thing, that's where the battle has to be.
I agree, and I also just think we need our members of Congress to work.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
this
yeah.
is not, this is their fucking jobs, and I get so angry
Yeah.
because I feel like the reason the Democrats are polling poorly is not because Republicans are doing great, it's because Democrats are not doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the people are mad because they are like, "Your job is to take care of us, to take care of those judges, to do this fucking work. We don't care that you have a book deal. We don't care that you have a podcast." Nobody wants, I mean,
Yeah.
such a great example of just squandering an opportunity to enact change, to do the stuff we need as Americans for us. And I really do think these members of Congress have, it's funny because I'm friends with this activist. He's an activist, among other things. And he has a whole theory of the case that all members of Congress are just incredibly selfish and obsessed with their own celebrity and unable, that they're just not in there for public service. And
Yeah.
we need to push our electeds to
Yeah.
be in there for public service. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's some of that. I mean, there's other issues. There's also the money factor.
Yeah.
That they have to be raising money, and I think that we need to really, move to a small donor model. The larger issue is that they find it easier to sort of punt and to like just leave everything to either the president or the courts. And this is a real problem. I think if American democracy is going to be saved, I strongly feel Congress more than the presidency is the battleground, and that's where you actually have to fix things.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's right. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely
And
true.
then we see this
Um,
the internal battle of the Democratic Party, where like any attempt to reform to say, well, some of these members that are like 90 years old and dying, maybe they should
yeah.
resign. Like
Yeah,
that's met
yeah,
with met
yeah.
with resistance. That's like seeing like
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
when you raise this stuff, you get attacked. Like you're an ageist. You're like
Yeah.
so I actually think that like yeah, I mean, but I actually also think that it's good that ordinary Democrats are mad at their own party and are
Yeah.
mad at Congress. I think that's where that is the pivot point at which things can get better.
Yeah. Jeet Heer. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Always great to be on the program.